All right. Hello. It is time for the Creative Imposter Live. I'm your host, Andrea Klunder. I am here with, why is my email up there? That's so wild. Loxley Browne.
Ta-da!
Loxley Browne is many things. A recent new colleague and friend and acquaintance of mine who we've met through an online community of women entrepreneurs called Visionaries. And it all began when Loxley posted a message looking for folks to come on her new podcast, which is called
Books that build skills.
Books That Build Skills. And this is available exclusively on YouTube. We'll have to see how much we get into the podcast nitty-gritty of it all, because this whole podcasts on YouTube thing is kind of a new. Though podcasts are not new, and though YouTube is not new, this whole like conceptualizing podcasts for YouTube, I feel like is a little bit new. But it's been working really, really well for you. So I'm excited to learn more about what you're doing there.
Yeah. Yeah. I am loving being on YouTube and I am loving being a podcast host. I had no idea I was going to go down this rabbit hole and add another hat to everything that I do, but I'm loving it. So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to come back to Books That Build Skills. We're going to come back to the podcast, but you just said adding another hat to everything that you do. And this is not really a question that I sent you ahead of time, but it kind of leads into one. First of all, where did you grow up?
In the South, Atlanta,
In Atlanta.
Atlanta, Georgia, the
Okay.
down like Virginia Highlands, Atlanta,
Okay.
Georgia.
So when I when we first met
Mhm.
to get ready to do your podcast, I learned a few different things about your background and your interests and what you were working on. You're an author, you're a podcaster, you founded a nonprofit organization. But then when we were preparing for this conversation, I did a little more digging and I saw adventure travel, photography, marketing, all these different things. And I was like, oh, Loxley and I have more in common than I ever even knew. Not because I've done any of those specific things, although I did start a nonprofit in my 20s.
Yeah.
But uh, I did not grow up in the South. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Michigan. So we grew up in different regions and different places. But here is the commonality. I feel like we both kind of followed our own path, which may not necessarily have been the traditionally expected path for people to follow where we were growing up. Does that feel true?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I was raised to be a soccer mom who married a doctor and lived on the country club golf course.
So what
That is
happened?
not the way my life turned out. Oh, no, no, no. So, yeah, I've done all of that. I started off in architecture, interior design, construction, and that was like my first decade of my career. And then I moved into, oh, I had this great idea. I'm going to do this. And I launched a card game for couples in 2007, I think it was. It was awesome. I was written up in Cosmo magazine. I was out doing Emmy gifting suites, meeting all these celebrities and having all this fun, and was supposed to become the next It Girl and got signed by Madonna's Maverick Films. And then the economy tanked and she went through and cleared house and everything just kind of shut down on that big project I'd been working on. So that's when I got into the marketing, really dove into like everything world, but then hit the pause button for a while because I took a year and a half and traveled west around the world and just adventure photography, enjoying life, using all of my skills and just hopping from one country to the next. And that was the true me finally shining through after 15, 20 years of working. Now, granted, I started working when I was 17. So like, it was like, if you really added up all of my years I've been working, it would make me sound like I'm really, really old because I grew up on a farm and like we literally start working when we're 5.
You
I
can
was out on a
walk, go dig
freaking
it, go
tractor.
dig.
No, yeah. Like they had to put wood blocks underneath my feet so I could reach the brake and the gas pedal on the tractor to get out there and
Wow.
like be the one who drove the tractor around with the hay bells on the big wagon behind it. Yeah. So yeah, I've been working for a long time, but I finally became true me when I got to go be adventure traveling around the world. I got this great picture of this awesome little Rinpoche monk in Nepal and actually won an international award for that. And he was just, it was like the sun was bursting out of him.
Huh.
And it was funny because I followed him around this monastery. I was out there doing this big spread and I kept taking his picture and he eventually asked somebody why I was chasing him around. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I swear. But he was like, she keeps taking my picture. And, you know, we couldn't speak the same language, but he was like, why does she keep taking my picture? Sweetest fellow. By now he's got to be in his mid 30s or 40s or something like that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But has travel stayed a part of like your life? And I know, COVID obviously put a damper on a lot of us world travelers and things. Has that sort of carried through or is that sort of on the back burner right now?
And that's on the back burner right now because I've got to get the nonprofit to a good place. But that's also written into the books. So the books that I write definitely follow the adventure and the travel and the how do we do this story that I created. And this year's set of books, because I write 6 books a year, starts off in a different country. So I am really hoping that everything, this little trifecta of what I have created really starts to blossom, because when it starts to blossom and the revenue streams pick up the way that I have designed them to pick up, that allows me to go do the research that I need to do for my books to bring the books to life even bigger and better. I mean, you can only get so much from researching online. There's so much that I want to do in person and get pictures and then be able to include the pictures in the books, because the books are very scrapbooky. So throughout the books, there's pictures everywhere. And I want to be taking these pictures myself instead of using, different things that I find out there to include in it, because like this just makes it so much more fun when you got these cute little pictures. Girls like to doodle. I like to doodle. I'm still a girl. I'm an older girl. But it's like having all this little doodleable. I don't know if that's a real word or not.
Doodleable.
Yeah. Items throughout the books. It just makes it more fun. I want to be able to go out there and research and get pictures in Scotland and be able to put my pictures in my book. So traveling is on the agenda to start again this April, if I meet all of my goals that I have to meet for the books and the podcast and the nonprofit. So
okay.
Trifecta.
So yes, so backing up, you mentioned the trifecta. So the book series that we're talking about is the URL that's on the screen right now, which is thecharmsbookseries.com. That's not the URL. The URL is charmsbookseries.com, but it is the Charms Book Series. So trifecta is this series of books, books that build skills podcast on YouTube.
Yes.
And books that build skills.org nonprofit. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the trifecta.
Okay. So what came first? The book series, yeah?
What came first was the nonprofit. So, I started the nonprofit 6 years ago in California, months before COVID shut down California, like
Mm.
literally locked us in our houses for a year. So just imagine how easy it is to, now I've started a 501(c)(3). I had all of these different donors lined up who were going to help me get this started, and we'd really be able to amplify it, and I would be able to put these systems into place and different programs so that it would end up becoming self-sustaining. Because one of my big things that drives me crazy about nonprofits is that they are not what they were in the early 2000s when I was younger. And for me, it was always you work half of your time and then you give half of your time. So it was always a 50-50 with me. So I was out there doing my design and construction and working crazy hours, but I was giving just as much. And the way things were structured then, and of course I wasn't a founder and I wasn't in the executive team working on it. It just appeared to be so much different. And then I started this nonprofit in California, which is not a place to start a business. And it just made me realize that now, and people, please listen to me when I say this, don't start a nonprofit. Go find a nonprofit that needs your help, because to be a true, sustainable, able to provide the programs that you want to provide nonprofit, it takes money, like big money. It's a corporation. It is a business just like any other business out there in this world. There is overhead. There are people that you've got to pay. The nonprofits that make it right now are because the Jeff Bezos of the world need a tax write-off. And so they create a nonprofit and their money goes into that nonprofit. And if you're not one of those multi uber rich, has more money than they will ever be able to spend in 5 lifetimes type of person, creating a nonprofit of your own is going to be the hardest thing you ever do in your life. So
Yeah,
I
I
decided
would
to do that.
yeah, I would say that that was sort of, the naivete of my 20s. It was
Yeah.
a group of us creatives. Well, I don't
Yep.
know if it's still a very Chicago thing. This was a very Chicago thing when I first moved here in my 20s, which is because you have a big theater scene.
Yeah.
And there's like the Equity Theater, which are like the well-known established union theaters, like the Goodman and the Steppenwolf and companies
Mhm.
like that. And then you had all these like pop-up small, what we call storefront theater companies,
Yeah.
where you just would have like a little black box, I mean, probably not even up to code building that you
Yeah.
would rent. And you would have scrappy, like very talented actors who had all come to Chicago from various places around the country. You would have
Mhm.
similar ideas, you would get together, and you weren't getting cast in these big shows, so you would kind of create your own. And our organization that we started, it was called Chicago Script Works, and it was basically a group of us who had met in we all had kind of like a film background, and we had met
Mhm.
in a screenwriting class, and we wanted to blend the theater world and the film world, and help aspiring screenwriters to improve their craft by taking
Mhm.
their script, matching it with a director and actors locally, and then putting on a staged reading for a live audience. And then the audience would give
Fun.
feedback and ask questions about the script and things like that. Such a cool concept. We're like, this is totally a 501(c)(3 not for profit. So we created this thing, and I was the artistic director, and we had an executive director and a director of communications. And then we realized that, like, we needed to raise money. And
Yeah.
none of us knew how to do that.
So that's the real job when you start a nonprofit. You spend 100% of your time trying to raise money. Literally, that's it. And then you still have 100% of all those other jobs you've got to do to make the company be a company. Oh, and then you still want to like get these programs out to the kids. Well, mine is literacy and young girls. So, there's so many things that you have to do. But number one has always I wake up every morning going, how do I get the funding that I need
Yeah.
for this program? How do I get the funding to create this? Like right now, I want to create an app, a vocabulary app to match alongside the books. And I'm starting a new YouTube program called Word of the Day, where the kids can go out every day. They have the assignment to check in, find the word, and then start using it. Download the worksheet that I've created for them. And it turns into, data collection. How many times do they use the word, I'm not going to say supercalifragilistic, shenanigans? There's a lot of shenanigans that go on in this book, and that's what Addie calls her Aunt Loxley. It's like, oh, well, you're the creator of shenanigans. So how many times could they use the word shenanigans in one day? How often would you ever hear a 13-year-old say shenanigans? Right now, 0.
This is
Once
speaking to
they're
my
doing the
inner
word of the
nerd.
day.
This
Yeah.
is speaking to my inner nerd because when I was in high school, we had our honors English teacher. So she was our 10th grade honors English teacher, and then she was also 12th grade AP advanced placement English teacher, and she would take we had the PSAT, which is a test that you take before you take the SAT. I don't remember if you take that as a sophomore or a junior. I think a junior. But she
She's
had like
sophomore now.
is it sophomore? Okay. So that's why, because she was teaching sophomores. So we would have like PSAT vocab words each week. And we would, for fun, my friends and I would just try to figure out how many times we could put an SAT vocab word like into our everyday conversation.
Yeah.
So nerdy, but we loved doing it.
So we're both nerds. We have now agreed upon that. I'm like one of the biggest, I can nerd down anything. It's awesome. But to be able to collect that kind of, and I read an article this week about how highly intelligent people are the ones who collect the data and learn how to improve themselves. And that's literally what I'm trying to get these little girls to do, is collect this data and figure out how to make yourself better. And if you're doing that at the age of 11, 12, 13, 14, imagine how much better they're going to be able to handle college or whatever type of training they do after high school. Like they'll be able to just seamlessly go into that instead of being like the one who gains the 15, freshman 15 and almost flunks out, loses scholarship because they're partying too much and they don't know anything about time management. Like I'm trying to help get rid of those little ripples that are not get rid of them. You got to have a few of those ripples. But when you go into it and you have more awareness of how you could handle this better, or just having practiced as a teenager, it's going to make your life so much better. And then these young girls will be able to get out of college or whatever kind of training they want to do. And I'm not saying you need to go to college, because I'm no longer the one that pushes that. Like right now, I would tell any little girl who would ask me to go to the trades, learn how to weld, get a CDL, learn how to drive a tractor trailer truck, learn how to be an electrician, learn how to do these trades. AI is not going to take that job whatsoever. And the ones who can start their path at a young age and know which direction they really want to go, and be able to start negotiating their salaries higher at a younger age, and then pay yourself first and always be putting aside money that's going to sustain you when you get older, like me. I haven't done that. So yeah, I'm the one who right now would love to be getting one of these Trump accounts. Give me whatever that amount of money is, so that 30 years from now, I have $1 million sitting there waiting for me. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do that for myself. But that would have been just like a golden ticket. I look at kids all the time and I go, oh, if at 30 I had this amount of money, this is what I would do. And I hope that when I say that around these girls, they actually listen to me, because I'm not their parent saying it to them. I'm, the favorite Aunt Loxley giving that life advice of learn how to negotiate, get out of college or whatever, negotiate your first salary, because that's going to increase your wages throughout your life by just upping that salary 5%. Instead of saying, "Oh yeah, I'll take 30,000 in a year. Thank you so much for that."
Yeah, and we
40.
talked
Go
about
for
that,
it.
hopping ahead to the podcast, the Books
Yeah.
That Build Skills podcast that you featured me on. One of the questions that you ask are, skills that you didn't learn in school that you
Mhm.
feel like are really important to develop. And I think I talked about that on the
Yeah. Yeah,
episode
we did.
of the personal finance skills. And like, I mean, my parents helped me create a saving, point zero nothing percent savings account as a child
Yeah.
that I put my babysitting money into and whatever. And I would try to save up to buy like, I don't know, a Huffy bike, 10-speed bike or
Yeah.
something like that. Um, but I never learned about money management. I never learned
Mhm.
about like, I had these preconceived ideas that like investing was a thing rich people did, and I am not a rich people, so I don't do that,
Yeah.
or yeah, I just didn't have that kind of awareness. So even if I had had the money, I wouldn't have necessarily known what to
To
do
do
with
with
it.
it. Yeah.
So that's really a skill that I've developed over my 30s and 40s is learning how money and finances work. And I mean,
Yeah.
ongoing project. I'm still learning, and I have that feeling of like I'm doing my best now, but I'm behind.
Oh,
And
yeah. I'm
like
so
if I was like, doing the retirement calculators, I'm like, "Oh, if I retire when I'm 90, I can afford to live for 2 years before I run out of money." So,
I think all of us in our age range are kind of looking at that retirement calculator, thinking and the same thing and laughing to ourselves, because I hear people go, "Oh, I'm going to retire next year," and I'm like thinking to myself, "You're younger than I am. What are you going to do? Like, really? Are you just going to sit around and cross stitch or something? Like, I know you don't play golf." So, like, I would be bored out of my mind for one thing, like, and that's one of the reasons why I started writing the books. I can do that till I'm 115. Now I'm going to have a little kid around entertaining me with, by then. I don't know. Hopefully, we'll have flying cars and be a little bit more Jetsons. I thought we'd be Jetsons by now, but we're not. Um, so, I'll need to have that young little teenager like keeping me up to date on what's cool and what the lingo and language is at that certain time. But yeah, I could write books for the longest time ever and be able to go out there and travel. Hopefully, by that point, maybe I could go out to the moon too. That would be fantastic. I would love that. So, yeah.
okay, so we've mentioned the book series a few times. You
Yeah.
showed us a little preview of what one of your books looks like, but when did the concept, first of all, have you always been a writer, or is that something you picked up later? And second of all, what is the concept behind the Charms books?
So I came up with the idea 2 Christmases ago to write the books because I had just moved the company from California back home to the South. The way I'd set up the company out there was more kind of hands-on in the shop, learning how to do things, and I realized I wasn't able to reach that many girls. And for me to be able to really get it out there and to be able to show girls the skills that you need, because for me, it's truly showing girls right now that you need to be a Renaissance woman. And that is a term that has just been swept away. People don't say it anymore. But a true Renaissance woman can do a little bit of everything. And with us not knowing where jobs are going to go, or knowing what skills or, what job titles are going to be invented within the next 10, 20, 30 years, the best way to prepare yourself is just to develop this huge plethora of skills. I was talking to someone earlier today, and we were both talking about how sewing is like a skill that is so helpful. And for me, sewing was about learning how to create the patterns. Oh, so now I can use pattern making in all of the engineering stuff that I do, in all of the building that I do. It's these weird little things, when you're a little kid and your mom says, oh, you need to learn how to sew. It's like, really? And then, now as a Gen Xer in my 50s, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm glad I learned how to sew, because now I can create all of my own pattern. I know how to, look at anything and see the pattern in it. So it's this huge variety of skills that's needed. And I realized that kids really aren't diving into that anymore. So I came up with the idea to write the books. And over the past year, because I've only been at this for a year now, I have written 7 books.
Amazing.
And the Inventor Notebook. This one's really fun. But each one of these books has a focus of a life skill. So book number 2 is about time management. Book number 3 is about project management. Book number 4 is about budgeting for a trip. And it all ties into the story, so that as you're reading the story and it's adventurous and it's fun, you're seeing Addie have a meltdown in book number 2 because mom's getting ready to go out to the International Space Station, and Addie can't get them to keep a calendar so that she'll know when everything's going on. So she has a meltdown over that. So, it's like these real life things, but I tie them into the book. And this is a bit like Shrek, the movie, because how little kids watch Shrek and they're just giggling and having fun and all these different, and then the adults are sitting in the background and they're laughing over totally different parts of the movie, but both generations are loving it because it's just a fun story. Well, this is the same way, because I have tweens and teens who are reading it and they're going, oh, okay, now I get what you do. Like, I do the funky dance whenever I freak out, because that helps to shake out my body and shake out the stress. And then my friends who are in their 40s and 50s and 70s are like, oh, you really did that, didn't you? Because this is a little bit of autobiographical. It's a little bit of my story. I can't say that word right now.
It's a little bit like doodleable.
Exactly. I don't know where these words are coming up from me today, but they're coming out of me. So, so I came up with the idea for the books a year ago because I knew that would allow me to reach more girls, the parents who are really looking for something outside of school that's going to be something that they can read and really digest and really like, because there's so many people now who go, oh no, I don't want to read anymore. Well, this is not like your typical book. So you're not going to look at it and go into Snooze Fest and go, oh, I don't want to read that. There's too many words. It's printed out on graph paper as the background. So I want people to write in it. And there's a lot of places in here where I ask questions along the way. So there are places for the kids to write down their answers. And then you keep the books. There's whole pages like this where you just doodle away and just have fun. So the parents can keep the books and then remind their kid in their 30s, here's this set of books that you used to love and write in when you were younger. Take a look at what you used to write to yourself. And be able to go back and look at those. This is what I want to do. Here's these stories of what I have planned for my life, because there's so many great opportunities to, what do I want to be? All of these different places to remind yourself ways that you're unstoppable, and just go through it. So getting all the thoughts of these teenagers written down on these pages so they can keep them forever and then be able to go back and look at them. I did that kind of thing when I was a kid. So I know how cool it is to be able to go back and go,
okay, I kind of want to do those I want to fill those out now. Like ways that I am unstoppable, skills I want to learn.
Ways that I am unstoppable. Everybody write your list down right now. What's the next one? Skills that I want to learn. Great things that I have done.
Okay, so I want to do this book, but what age is it meant for?
Okay, so it's meant for like that 10 to 14 years old.
Okay.
Especially like the 12th graders, the 8th graders, because I do a camp every summer. the Tech Trek camp. And those are rising 8th graders, and they love the books. And they just dig into it, and they love the fact I have never seen girls light up so much as when I looked at this group of 68 girls and said, here's a book for you. I want you to read it, and I want you to write in this book. And they're like, oh, what, you mean I can write in it? Like, my mom's going to get mad at me. I was like, no, it's meant to be written in. I want you to write in this book, and I want you to write down all your ideas, and then I want you to hold on to it. Like, you have to promise me you keep it until you're 30, and then you go back and read it. And tell me how cool that is when you're 30.
It's interesting because there's been a few things, and this is totally a rabbit hole, but I feel like you can go here with me.
Ready?
There's been a few things that have been coming up in popular culture discussions that I've been hearing in articles, podcasts, and of course, I'm not able to cite any sources whatsoever off the top of my head. But there was even apparently a recent congressional hearing, which I believe was a Senate hearing, that was about how we learn as humans, not as like a particular generation or anything like that, just as human brains develop, that was saying that the proliferation of screens in classrooms, we don't actually learn the same way from a screen as we do from like a tangible thing. Like even here, like my work is digital. I'm a digital media creative. We're here on a podcast, and I take notes as we're having this conversation in a notebook with a pen with my hand of things that I want to come back to or ideas that I get when I'm talking to you. And I can promise you that if I typed those notes into my notes app, I could easily find them later, but my brain didn't retain it the same way as when I wrote it with my hand.
Yep.
And at first I thought, oh, it's just because I grew up in that, I'm in that generation where I'm sort of like right sandwiched in between Gen X and millennial, geriatric millennial, I think we are now. Where I went through school with pen and paper. I learned how to type on a type, ding, typewriter, you know, not on a computer keyboard. And then I didn't even have, we did get a computer, a PC of some kind in high school. And then college was when like I first started like typing papers on a computer and had email for the first time. So I'm like, well, my entire like learning was all manual. So maybe that's why, but they're finding that even young generations don't learn as well from having everything be on an iPad. Some of my high school students that I work with, they're even like, yeah, we don't get books anymore. We get like the digital version on the iPad. We only read on screens. We don't read like paper books, or if we do have books, we can't take them out of the classroom because then the school doesn't have a budget for if they like lose the books. So it's like classroom sets of books that can't leave, you know, like, and it worries me because I was hearing, and I know that this conversation I heard on the It's Been a Minute podcast from NPR. They were talking about some economics person was predicting that the skill of reading, this is so terrifying. The skill of reading is going to become old-fashioned the way the skill of sewing has become old-fashioned, where some people learn it for fun, but
do you want to hear a really scary stat? Because I can go down this rabbit hole so far down this hole with you. I know the stats. Only 31% of 8th graders are reading at 8th grade level.
31%. Is that 31%, global or
so
US?
Think about that. That's the United States.
United States, okay.
And that is a government statistic from 2 years ago. That means that right now there are 2 out of 3 kids in the 8th grade. That's where they gather all this data that cannot read. Okay, and so they're bouncing them up. There are, and I know this because I went down the rabbit hole and I got my substitute teacher license because I was thinking to myself this past year, if I'm trying to get this into the schools, I'm trying to get the kids and the teachers interested, I need to go see what it's like in there. I'll never go back into a classroom again. It was the most horrific experience I've ever had. They are not using pencil and paper. They are not using books. They can't read. So there are kids graduating right now that are functionally illiterate, but they're getting a high school diploma. Now, let that sink in. And here's the part that just makes me go, pfft. These kids want to join the workforce and they can't read or comprehend. So they're thinking they're going to get into the workforce and then they're going to get this job and they're going to get 6 figures a year because that's what Mark Zuckerberg did. And, this influencer that they watch or whatever. They can't comprehend the job they're supposed to do. They can't read instructions. Now to top it off with the fact that they're thinking they're going to get a big paycheck. That's not going to happen. Topping that off with the fact that their brain doesn't fully develop until they're 29 years old because they've spent so much time staring at this, their brain couldn't develop. And that is scientifically proven that screens are delaying the brain growth process. When I got out of high school at 17, my brain was fully developed by the time I was 18 or 19. I then went straight into the workforce and I went straight into a managerial position as an interior designer. And my brain was firing on all cylinders in my early 20s. Right now, it's late 20s before the brains are firing on all cylinders. Kids are getting out of school not knowing how to read, which then becomes a comprehension problem. Just imagine what it's going to be like 20 years from now when there's this whole decade of students who got out of high school and they're happy they have their high school diploma, but they can't read and comprehend.
Wow.
Yeah.
On a brighter note, speaking of reading, on a brighter note, we're live streaming and recording on World Read Aloud Day. Did I say that right? Yeah,
Yes.
World Read Aloud Day, February 5th. And the audio edit of this episode is going to release into the Creative Imposter podcast feed during middle grade March, date TBD. But we've set that up, lined that up with those specific dates. And in honor of both of these events, I thought it would be really cool to have you read a little excerpt from one of the books. Before you do, why is it called Charms?
So each one of these books is like, think of that scouting club that has little girls in it. And they're always going after badges and they're earning badges and they're filling their sash full of badges. Well, here we are working on our charms. And our charms are the different skills that we build. And so the Charms book series are a whole series of different skills, charms, similar to a badge. So, yeah.
Great. All right. So set us up for what we're about to hear.
Okay, so this is book number 2, TikTok Take Charge. And this is where the story really starts. So you really start to see Addie's character come through. At this point, there's multiple characters involved in the story now. So her best friend Jenny, Aunt Loxley lives downstairs in the studio. Dad works for the FBI. Mom works for NASA, and she's a rocket scientist. So you've got this whole group of people, multiple generations. Her favorite kind of grandfather figure, Mr. Collins, lives next door. So there's just like all of this great mixture of just people. And little Addie, being the inventor that she is trying to get everybody organized. So we start off at chapter 4, Organizing the Chaos. I've never read aloud. A book reading. This is the first time ever. Oh my God. Addie's brain was doing that thing where it refused to shut up. Ever since they found that old journal tucked behind Loxley's bookcase, she couldn't stop wondering about it. How had it ended up there? And why gardening notes of all things? I mean, sure, her mom was a rocket scientist, but the last time Addie checked, planting tomatoes was not part of an astronaut's training program. Loxley had promised to dig into it, but Addie still wasn't used to not knowing things. She liked plans, schedules, and being in control of her time, which was exactly why her next mission was getting the entire family organized. If they were going to survive Mom's upcoming space mission, Dad's FBI mystery trips, and Aunt Loxley's I'm off on an adventure moments, someone had to take charge. And let's be honest, it wasn't going to be the adults. Addie's phone buzzed as she walked upstairs, an unknown number flashing on the screen. She hesitated and then answered, "Hello?" A deep, calm voice came through the speaker. "Addie, Dr. T here. Your Aunt Loxley reached out, said your family was in desperate need of organization, and that you, my dear, are the responsible one." Addie sighed dramatically. "I am more responsible than the adults in my life. It is exhausting." Dr. T chuckled. "Welcome to project management." Addie flopped onto her bed. "Okay, tell me, how do I organize a bunch of chaotic, overscheduled adults?" "Well," Dr. T said, "have you ever heard of a Gantt chart?" Addie frowned. "Is that some kind of fancy graph?" "More like a timeline on steroids. Life is a series of moving tasks, some urgent, some flexible. A Gantt chart helps you see what's happening when and the drop dead dates that must be accomplished to keep the project on track, or move forward to a new date which extends the deadlines. Sometimes the world throws unexpected items at you that are beyond your control." So, yeah.
Okay. Number one, I literally just learned what a Gantt chart was this year.
My life revolves around a Gantt chart.
I'm like, oh, that was in my project management class.
So now I'm trying to teach 11-year-olds about Gantt charts so they understand.
I mean, it probably would have helped me a lot if I had known it sooner.
Life is going to throw things at you sometimes that you can't control.
Two, obviously you mentioned that these books are a little bit autobiographical, and I noticed Aunt Loxley is a character in the book. Are you an aunt in real life? We've never talked about this. Interesting.
But I'm that favorite auntie that all of my friends' kids are always like, "Loxley, I've got to tell you something." Yeah.
Yes. So I am an aunt, a biological aunt to 3 little girls who are not quite old enough for these books yet, but when they are, they will be receiving them. It's one of my favorite roles in life. And also, I love the auntie to other children who are not biologically related role. I think that's super interesting. Is Addie based on a real character, a real person?
So Addie is based on younger me.
Oh.
So kind of like the why behind all of this, because when we go deep into, and that usually requires a bottle of wine and like
still afternoon here. We're not quite to wine time yet.
Can't do that yet. We could if we were in Europe. But the younger version of me needed the older version of me to handhold and walk through a couple of different things. So I created this book around the younger version of me and the older version of me so that the little girls out there who need that would have like their mentor through words to kind of help navigate through all that crazy stuff that life throws at you that's sometimes out of your control.
For sure. We're going to move to the third part of the trifecta. So we talked about the nonprofit, we talked about the book series, we mentioned the podcast, and the URL that's up on the screen right now is bit.ly/art versus job, ARTVSJOB. This is the YouTube playlist that I have where all the past live streams and all of the upcoming live streams that are part of this Creative Imposter series lives. And this series is When Your Art Becomes Your Job. So we're talking with different creators who have gone down that path, whether through entrepreneurship, whether through nonprofitship, whether through, having a job where they are employing something that they're really passionate about in their life. And in order for your art to be your job, you do have to make money. And part of making money, even not just in a nonprofit sense and fundraising, but sometimes also means selling. It also means marketing. It also means finding your audience for these creative things that you are doing. This is not the whole like build it and they will come is just not a thing.
Yeah.
And so as part of that, you've launched the podcast, Books That Build Skills. And this has been also part of a rebrand for you for the nonprofit as well, which had an old name and has recently become Books That Build Skills. And you've got a new website and you've done a ton of SEO. Why a podcast?
So the podcast for me is the way of, and I was going to do this, it just like hit me. End of each year, I come up with another thing. So 2 Christmases ago, it was write books. This Christmas, it was, oh, we need to do a podcast because I've always wanted to bring in the experts. And if you look at booksthatbuildskills.org, you'll see that I have industry experts. I have a page on there. And since I started this, I've always reached out and brought in people who are out there in the industry making big things happen to have them speak to the girls that I bring in for different programs. So doing the podcast is my way of doing that and putting it out there on YouTube as a video for people to watch, because YouTube is now basically becoming what TV was when I was a kid. You know, you used to have that big box now with the remote control who would go turn and there were 3, ABC, CBS, and NBC. So now there's YouTube, and there's this one channel you should go subscribe to called Books That Build Skills. And it's a show that, I'm going and talking to, a doctor. You've talked to them about being a podcast producer. I've got other friends who are mechanical engineers, automotive engineer. I just filmed a long show, not an hour, but close, about space for the Artemis launch. So it's taking everybody behind the scenes to see what it takes to do that job and, different skills that you need to start learning or amassing if you want to go down that career path. So the show's really kind of like taking you behind the curtain, push that curtain back. If you want to be a mechanical engineer, here are some things that you need to start working on right now, and then preparing, to go into college to get that degree. And it just really helps it doesn't matter if you're 12 and trying to figure out what you want to do, or if you're in your mid 30s and you've realized that first degree that you got just isn't what you really wanted to do. And now you're going to go back to school again to get the degree for what you really wanted to do. Like, that's the show that these people are, that's the people that the show is for, are the ones who are trying to figure it out. And they just want to hear from somebody who is in the seat, boots on the ground, doing it right now. So they really can start to develop whatever it is they need to develop in order to pursue that. So that's what the podcast is all about. Now, we did talk about the books a lot too, because like everything that I'm hearing from everybody, and, I immediately, as I hear them first start talking, I go, oh, in book number 3, this happened. And so like, you'll see me pull up the book and go, well, da, 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 da.
And in fact, we don't have time to get into it in this conversation, but I'm probably either going to have to have another conversation with you at some point, or just talk about it in general. This is more into like the podcast craft behind the scenes type stuff. But just for listeners, and we're on YouTube. We're on we're not listeners anymore. We're audience, for audience members, both
Yeah.
viewers and listeners. Uh, See, I'm such an audio person. I have to get into the whole video of it all. But Loxley's guest onboarding process was one of the Chef's Kiss most wonderful processes I've ever been a part of. Way better than my guest onboarding process. I've learned a lot that I want to implement into my process. But the clarity of concept, the tying of the messaging from the books, like the branding, the messaging, the product, the guest's expertise, the personality, all of it just flows really, really well. It's super impressive. So that's a conversation that we need to have maybe on my other show, Podcast Envy, at some point in time.
You know me, I'll talk.
But talking about these different careers and looking at this theme that we're having now of when your art becomes your job, in the money making side of all of it, how are you sustaining a living? Like, how are you paying yourself? And also, what are some of the pros and cons of sustaining yourself off of these creative pursuits and passions and ideas that you keep having?
Okay, so the reason I came up with the books was so that we could create a revenue stream to sustain the nonprofit, because each one of the books is basically a program. For $15, you buy the book, your child reads it. There's free downloads on the Charm site. And so there's discussion questions, there's a worksheet of some sort that corresponds with that book. So there's your badge right there. There's your charm, is that one little $15 book. You sit down, hopefully you as a parent are sitting there reading one of your favorite books and your daughter's right there beside you reading, and you can pull those discussion questions out and read with her. So the books I created those as a revenue stream because I know that always going out with my hand open saying, please donate to Athenian, that gets old for me. And I've literally now, when I tell people I founded a nonprofit, they will turn around and walk away from me because they know that the second thing that most people will say is, oh, will you donate to my nonprofit? I don't say that anymore. I just say, I write a book series. Do you know any little girls? Because they should buy a book. So it's a way of providing an income stream for the nonprofit. So everybody, please go buy books. I need 125,000 people to buy the 8 books, and then I will have sold 1 million. And that's my goal for the year.
And so I guess that goes also into like, how are you measuring success for these creative projects? Because I find that I have these conversations with creatives all the time, where, for me, I'm usually having conversations with them about their podcast, right? Since that's what I do professionally, is podcast strategy and production. And I'll say, well, what would success look like for your podcast? Or, what is your goal? And a lot of times it's like, oh, well, we just want to reach as many people as possible. And I'm like, okay, but why? But like, what does that mean? And how many is as many people as possible? We don't know how many is as many as possible. Like, what is the benchmark? Or what do you want those people to do when you reach them? Or how will you know that they're engaged and not just like, oh, I clicked on this thing, but then I wasn't really like paying attention. Like, what are those deeper measures for success for you? How do you know, Loxley, that you're on the right path and that this is the direction that you're going to keep going?
I don't think any of us ever know that we're on the right path, but I am determined and I am not giving up. For me, it's very easily measurable. I can tell when books are being bought. I just open up that report once a week and take a look at it. And with the podcast, it's the amount of hours that are viewed and the amount of subscribers. And right now, my exciting thing is I I came up with the idea to do the podcast 6 weeks ago. And I just filmed a handful of shorts and I put them out there. And I've had 26,000 views in 6 weeks. And that blew my mind because normally you put a video or a short out there and you're lucky with a brand new channel if you have 15 to 30 people view it. And I got really lucky because books that build skills is obviously a term that parents are typing in because they're trying to find books and fun books for their kids to read that will help them build skills. So that's why I did that rebranding of the website to Books That Build Skills, because now that I have my Google ads all set up too, because that's part of the trifecta, is that I'm lucky because Google provides Google for nonprofits, and it allows a $10,000 grant per month for us to put ads out there. I now have finally figured it out. It took me 6 years, but I now have the Google ads running. So that's part of the trifecta. You know, I have the ads that are going to go out there, 5 different ads focused on the podcast and on the book so that the podcast starts to get viewers, because as soon as and if you guys commute back and forth to work, please turn on YouTube and listen to Books That Build Skills and listen to the entire, so that the hours start to go up and the subscribers start to go up and the viewing goes up. Because the minute that we hit 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours, then it starts getting monetized. And that provides another stream of revenue for the nonprofit. So everything that I'm building, I'm trying my best to make this as self-sustaining as I can. There's still, I have a summer camp that I'm doing in New Jersey. I need to find a sponsor to sponsor this $10,000 2-day experience that I'm going to provide for them. So I'm going to be knocking on a lot of doors. That's the third stream of revenue is, the sponsorships and the grants and the donations that come in. But those have been dwindling since 2020.
Yeah.
And the amount, we'll see the numbers later, but the numbers keep going down. They don't go up as far as donations. So that's why I had to get crafty and put my entrepreneurial hat on and say, I want this to still be around 50 years from now. I want to be, I can't remember the Girl Scout founder's name. Oh, Juliet Lewis. I should know. She's Georgia. She's from Georgia.
I don't know.
We're both
we didn't
from Georgia.
do Girl Scouts. We did Campfire in West Michigan.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
But I want people to, go, oh, Miss Loxley, the same way, when I was a little kid, I went, oh, Miss Juliet, I still want this to be around. This is not a flash in the pan for me. And I am a stubborn redheaded Southern woman, and I will make this happen. Now I'm just going to find more people to listen to the YouTube podcast, and parents who want their little teenager to read a good book, a really good book. Like, this is one of those kind of books that you don't have to worry about any kind of weirdness into it. I had it miscategorized for the first 9 months until I sat down with a librarian and she had read the first one. And she said, Loxley, this is not a young adult book. This is juvenile fiction. I didn't even know that category existed. But when you go read young adult books now, parents, don't let your young ones read that. Just don't.
I sometimes think about even me when I was, because I had advanced reading skills. So I was reading books that were like more mature than what my age was. But even like the young adult books that my friends and I liked when we were in like 8th grade, 9th grade, I'm like, those were kind of questionable subject matter. I don't know.
Racy, I guess, is one of the lighter
we
ways.
liked to read a lot of the horror, like thriller type things, like Fear Street and stuff like that. And I was like,
yeah, I don't want a 12-year-old reading that. That just, what you read, what you listen to, what you hear goes down into your soul, into your subconscious. So like, I want to fill these little subconscious full of like good, happy, let's go out there and do great stuff for the world kind of thoughts. So yeah, that's what the books are about.
We're coming up.
Happen.
Wait, say that part again.
So let's make good things happen. That's what the books
Yes.
are about.
I knew that we would have more to talk about than what would fit into a solid hour. Do you have time for two more questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Penultimate question. The title of this live stream was Building Skills Without Burning Out. And you are doing a lot. And
Yeah.
you're doing a lot like single-handedly, like writing, designing the books yourself, running the nonprofit, fundraising, doing the admin, doing the podcast, reaching out, coming on shows like this one to get the word out about what you're doing. And every time I see you online, you have great energy. How are you doing all of this and also like feeding yourself and taking care of yourself and not just lying flat on the floor staring at the ceiling?
Okay, you want to know the funniest thing I did for myself this year? I bought myself one of those mini trampolines because when I was a little kid, I used to love trampolines. So now anytime I'm low energy, I'm right here bouncing on that trampoline like a little 5-year-old. That is so good for your health too, because it's training your lymphatic system. So it's like, and it's making me look younger. And I'm like, I laugh and giggle. My roommate thinks I'm the funniest thing in the world, but I love it. So that's one of the things I do to help with stress reduction is just jump on a trampoline. It's
That was
awesome.
not what I was expecting you to say, but that's amazing.
So that's one of them. Time blocking is a huge thing. And right now I'm like, and I do these and I do a sprint. So I decide, like I decided to change the domain name of the website, which means you do a whole lot more than just change that URL. You have to change all the logos and all the branding, and you have to go through all the SEO, and then you have to go through every single page. And so you have to make sure everything, yeah, there's a lot to that. So I'll do these sprints and I block off. I'm like, for this 7 straight days, this is all I'm doing. But I make sure I wake up in the morning and I get my yoga in, and then I sit down and I am nonstop. And I'm like, I focus like tunnel vision on whatever I've got to do. And then I get it done. There's no lingering. There's no, oh, I'll get this finished up later. And I think a lot of people do that. Life throws stuff at you, and sometimes you have to do that. But that lingering part causes me more stress than anything I've ever seen in my life. So, like, I just go full force until it's done. And my board directors, I'll send them a text at 7:00 in the morning. They both live in totally different time zones. And so I know one's going, oh, mercy. And the other one's going, I'll look at that when I wake up. But, it's like I get to the end of each one of these sprints and I give them an update on where things are. So then I have like my accountability partners out there, which those of us on the board are basically, it's accountability for it all. Like, we've got to get this program up and going. I've got to get this book done so this program can go. So for me, it's just a lot of time blocking, seriously. Yeah. And being just really focused in on it. And when you reach that clarity of, this is my why, this is what I'm going to do, this is what, like we were talking before we started recording, and I mentioned books and podcasts for me. I need to sell books. I need to monetize the podcast. And I need that note on my wall over there so that I look at it every single day. So, as long as you have that goal in mind, this is what I've got to get done, it's so much easier for me to do those long sprints. And then I'll take a couple of days off and then I do another long sprint. So but I'm doing smaller sprints that lead to a marathon.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. This series is When Your Art Becomes Your Job, and you have several creative ventures that you're doing. If I asked you, what is your art? Like, what is that through line? You might say, oh, creative writing, or oh, entrepreneurship, or whatever it is. How would you define your art? What do you think your art is, Loxley?
Beauty.
Ooh.
So ever since I designed my very first room when I was 6 years old, and I got to choose everything. Color of the walls, the color of that beautiful shag carpeting, the little flower pennant, everything. I walk into any and every situation, and I want whatever it is that I'm touching, whatever it is that I am doing to be beautiful and provide beauty and be beauty for other people to see. And it's that way with the books, and that's why I've designed them the way that I have. It's meant to look like the old composition notebooks, but it's the pretty version of it. So you look at it, it's like, oh, that's beautiful. And you open it up and like there's graph paper and like, pretty things. So I want everything that I do to be beautiful. And when I'm working on these, the Project Charms experience that I do with the girls, like it's all about showing these little girls that you can be beautiful and you can be smart and you can do these different, it's just showing an experience and seeing beauty everywhere. So everything that I do, whether it's photography or designing a book or designing a website or doing a keynote speech, like everything that I do, I want it to have beauty behind it.
That's a beautiful place to end this conversation. We are going to be releasing the audio edit version of this episode into the Creative Imposter podcast feed in March. And when that happens, the show notes will be up on the website at thecreativeimposter.com and in the podcast apps. And we'll have links to some of the upcoming events and highlights that Loxley is working on through Books That Build Skills, including Middle Grade March, the Summer Reading the Summer Reading Challenge that starts in May. I can always tell when I need to wrap up the episode because I suddenly cannot form words properly. And of course, she did mention the word of the day that is launching as well. So we'll link to all of that in the show notes at thecreativeimposter.com. And anything else, Loxley, that you want to share with our viewers before we say goodbye?
Well, Middle Grade March starts in a couple of weeks, so let everybody know that we've got a challenge every single day during Middle Grade March, and they'll need to go out there and grab their books because the books are involved too. But there's a lot of fun things for the kids to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been incredible. So much fun, as I knew it would be. And we're going to end the stream here. Thank you so much for watching either live or on the replay. And we'll see you soon.